I am begging you to check your Hoyas for root rot because mine looked completely fine. Some were still growing, some were still flowering. Beneath the soil, the plant was already dying. And that's what makes root rot so dangerous for Hoyas, because what you see on the top is not what's happening below. This year, I've dealt with Hoya root rot on multiple of my Hoyas.
We have Hoya Filsonii, Hoya Crimson Queen, Hoya Crimson Princess, Hoya Calistophylla, Hoya Bella, Hoya Matilde.
The list can keep going. And the hardest part of this root rot situation that I have been dealing with is that the plant looked completely healthy at first. So I kept watering my plants thinking everything is fine, but the damage was already happening underneath. Today, I'm going to share with you some things that I missed that I wish I paid attention to. So the first place you might notice something is off are the leaves. But if you're seeing it in the leaves, you're already behind and the plant has already started to fail. Leaves that are wrinkled, puckered, and curled, anything about the leaf that seems off, even yellowing of the leaves, when a Hoya leaf start feeling really thin, when it's actually always so nice and hydrated and plumped, there's something going on. Healthy Hoya leaves should feel full and sturdy and plump. When the roots are damaged, the plant cannot uptake water at all. So no matter how much you water, the plant will always look thirsty. Another thing you can do is check your Hoya stems, especially near the soil line. If you noticed weak or thinning stems or a yellowing, darkening tissue near the base, there's probably something going on in the roots. Stem rot will continue going up the plant until it kills it off. Healthy stems should feel firm and flexible. Another sign that's easily ignored, even by me, if your plant has stalled in growth, that is a sign something is wrong, because my Hoya Sunrise stopped growing. So no new growth. If there is new growth and that new growth, the new leaves that's coming in is falling off, something is wrong. Or the new growth kind of sits there for a few months, not moving, something's definitely wrong. Could be a sign of pest, but sometimes it's also root rot. Another thing you can look for is paying attention to how your growing medium behaves. If you grow in soil, if you grow in semi-hydro, you can look for signs there too. So root rot problems most likely can happen if the plant pot is staying wet for way too long. Because when you water your Hoyas, it should start uptaking that water, and then eventually within a few days it will dry out. You will notice plant pot is not looking as wet. This is good for those who grow in clear pots. If your clear pot is developing a lot of algae quickly, that is a sign that it's too moist and you need to look at the roots. Here's a part that a lot of people miss, including myself. I missed this. If a Hoya stays too dry for too long, it can damage the roots. That's where I was. Life got a little busy and I just neglected my Hoyas, and I am paying a price. Yes, Hoya roots get wet, Hoya roots dry out, Hoya roots can rehydrate. For those Hoya roots that don't rehydrate, they were sitting too dry for too long. Hoya roots are not like philodendrons, monsteras, or even anthuriums. The Hoya roots are more fragile than you think. Speaking of roots, if your gut is telling you something is wrong with your Hoyas, that is when you should check the roots. And my gut was telling me something was wrong with my Hoyas, especially my Hoya Croniana Silver. The leaves never rehydrated even to this day. This has been dehydrated since November of last year. That's how long. There's some parts that's bouncing back because I've rehabbed this plant and there's new growth, and that new growth that's coming in, it's nice and hydrated. Check the roots to make sure nothing is wrong. And that is a step that a lot of people don't want to do, because who wants to kind of unpot their plant? But it is so easy to just unpot the plant and look at the roots, tug on the roots. If you use a clear pot, it's easy to see this. It's always a good idea to always check your Hoya roots if you feel something is off. Now, healthy Hoya roots should look white, cream, should be firm, it should have structure. You will see root hairs in that plant. That is healthy Hoya root. Rotted Hoya roots usually look brown, black, mushy, really thin, especially when you tug on it. That outer capsule of the root will just peel right off, and there it leaves a really thin part of the root. That is wet root rot. And those roots will definitely smell not so good, a little funky, not what you want to smell in your Hoya. And sometimes rotted roots look completely healthy because sometimes you deal with dry rot instead of wet rot, and the dry rot roots look just like healthy roots. That is where a lot of people miss as well because it looks great. If those roots are thin and brittle and breaks really easy, that is dry rot. And also if your plant is not anchored in the soil, you can kind of check the stem to see if it's really anchored. If it doesn't feel anchored, there's a sign something is going on the roots. And then if you water your plant and it still looks thirsty the next day, that is the most definite sign that there is root rot. Wet root rot can happen from overwatering your plants, and dry root rot can happen from keeping your Hoyas dry for too long. And if you're wondering what is worse, overwatering or underwatering, in my opinion, from what I've gone through with root rot, I feel overwatering is worse and harder to overcome in your Hoyas, because I have an example of overwatering. This is what could happen when you completely overwater your Hoya. The leaves, the plant will completely die off. It's gonna melt, and this is pond, and there's fungus gnats coming out of this pond. This is an overwater plant. I cannot bring this back at all. There's no hope for this one, but if this was dry rot, I'm able to cut those roots off and cut until I see a healthy part of the stem where there's some sap, or it looks like there's some meat in the stem. That would still be a viable stem if it's gone. If it had dry rot, there's no viable stem on this overwatered Hoya cutting. Hoyas always look fine on the top, but on the bottom, something is going wrong. I feel like as a plant hobbyist, as someone who loves Hoyas, most of my collection include Hoyas. I need to get into a better habit of checking my Hoyas, especially if there's temperature fluctuations, if there's too much heat, check your Hoya. If there's a drop in temperature, I would say check your Hoya as well. Get to know your Hoya. Look at the Hoya behavior. For one thing, like my Filsonii, I'm used to watering that plant and the next day the leaves are plumped and hydrated and look so shiny and lush. And when I started seeing the plant's leaf look very thin, I just knew something was wrong. And by that time, it's already too late. The plant needs a rehab. If you notice something's off with your Hoya or it doesn't behave as well, I am begging you to check your Hoyas for root rot. I did not check my Hoyas right away. I let it go because I thought, oh, it's going to be fine. I don't have time for this. But if I had checked my Hoyas when I felt something was wrong, the recovery period going on right now would be a lot shorter. It would be different. If you want to see the whole root rot saga on my Hoyas, I will link the playlist somewhere here so you can see the drama. I just want to share a quick video on what I've learned through this process of root rot. Thank you so much for hanging out. Enjoy the rest of your day. Always remember you are loved.